Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to set up, configure and use remote consultations. So as you can see on my screen, there are currently two instances of EMIS Web open. One is the hosting service that's going to host the appointment books for improved access. In this instance it's EMIS Web Clinical Services. Some regions may do GP to GP, other regions may prefer to use clinical services, so the appointment books are hosted in a location that doesn't belong to a GP practice. The other instance I've got open is a GP practice. So the first thing I want to show you is how to enable the sharing agreements. So I'm in clinical services at the moment. If I click on configuration, data sharing manager, and come down and click on appointments. Underneath appointments you can see that we have an enterprise agreement which has been activated, and you can see on the right hand side all the GP practices that are part of this agreement. I'm just going to minimize clinical services and maximize the GP practice, and again same place, configuration, data sharing manager, come down to appointments, down to the enterprise agreement, and again this agreement has been activated by that GP practice, and here are all the GP practices that are part of that agreement. Of course you'll need to work with your GP practices to get a robust data sharing agreement in place and make sure the IG is covered, and also work with the EMIS solution optimization team who will work with you to get those agreement configurations set up. So once the agreements have been activated across the region, we can now start setting up the appointment books. So I'm just going to maximize clinical services again and go to appointment books. And on the screen I've already set up some appointment books for remote consultation, but I'm just going to show you what you have to do when you set up an appointment book or shared appointment book for remote consultations. So I've given a date, a session name, the time slots, a session category. That's not important, that's just our own preference. What is important is on the slot properties that you make it externally bookable, but you disallow, I should say, unregistered patients. And the reason you do that is every patient that you will be booking onto a remote consultation appointment book will be a registered patient at a GP practice. If they're an unregistered patient, then they'll need to be booked in as an unregistered patient at the GP practice before you can book them into a remote consultation appointment book. Just going to put in there as well that it's for testing purposes only, so no practices book into it now. And the other important fact is the session holder. It's only the session holder can perform a remote consultation from that appointment book. So I'm going to put myself as the session holder because I've set myself up with the appropriate RBAC role that will allow me to do that. And what I mean by that is any session holder must have an RBAC profile of either a clinical practitioner access role, a nurse access role, or a healthcare professional access role. This website is very useful, by the way. It's the EMIS Now website, and if you just search on remote consultations, there are 10 guides about how to set up and configure remote consultation. So that's the emisnow.com website. I'm not going to create this appointment book because I'm going to use an existing appointment book, as you can see here. Right then, sorry about that long pause there, I lost my recording button. Okay, appointment is now set up within Clinical Services, which is the hosting EMIS organisation in this example. I'm now going to go back to the GP practice, and we're going to go through the scenario that a patient wants an appointment, I should say, in the improved access service. They're at the reception or on the telephone. So here I am in the GP practice instance of EMIS. I'm going to go to the appointment book. I'm going to open up the patient's record. Okay, so the patient I'm using here is a test dummy patient, or sorry, I should say a spine test dummy patient. So I think it's more of a realistic test, and you can request spine dummy patients if you email testdata@nhs.net. So patient record is open within EMIS Web. I'm going to go to the appointment book. I'm going to click on Find Slot, and I'm going to choose Find Cross-Organisational Slot. You can see that the organisation or the GP practice is pre-populated, as well as the patient. What we need to do down here is choose the organisation that is hosting the appointment book. So in our example, it's the South Worcestershire Primary Care Limited. And you can now see all the available externally shared appointment slots are viewable. So I'm going to pick a slot. So I'm going to go for 7:30 for this evening. I'm going to double click on it, and it's here you're prompted to capture the patient's consent or get the patient's consent, all being well they say yes. And we then want to give a reason. And we can now click on book. And it tells you we're booking an external slot, who the appointment is booked for and where. Click on OK, and that's done. So if I minimize the GP practice instance and maximize the appointment book hosted on Clinical Services and just refresh that page, you can now see here is the booked in patient. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a registered patient. So even though you're on a different instance of EMIS, because you're using remote consultations, it's the registered patient at the GP practice that's been booked in. So you can see that the surname is uppercase, the first name is lowercase. It's not free text, as you may see when you're using booking unregistered patients into Clinical Services. Okay, so I'm now a healthcare professional working on the, just started my improved access session. And you can see here in my session filter and my appointment book the patient that was booked in earlier. So as you normally would do, I'm going to arrive the patient and then I'm going to send them in. Now when you click on S to send them in, it will open up another session or tell you where the patient is registered and open up a second instance of EMIS Web. So you're still in EMIS Web Clinical Services or EMIS another GP instance where that's hosting the appointment book, but it's now open up the patient's instance of EMIS Web. So in other words, you're tunneling back into the patient's instance of EMIS Web. So here we are, it's now open up the GP instance of EMIS Web, and at the bottom you can see a purple tab that tells you or indicates the location, that it's enterprise working and you're consulting on behalf of the GP practice. So in this demonstration it's a Farrier House surgery. So the healthcare professional will now do a consultation. For remote consultations it's called an enterprise consultation. So I'm going to click on Enterprise Consultation. Make sure that the consultation properties are correct. So the organisation or the improved access organisation and the healthcare professional. And click on OK. And we can now start adding some information. So we've done the consultation, we've put some notes and clinical codes in there and whatever else we need to put in there. We can now save it. And it saves the consultation. It tells us that it's an enterprise consultation and who it was carried out by, the organisation, in this instance South Worcestershire Primary Care Limited, who the healthcare professional was, and that this symbol here indicates that it's an enterprise consultation. But what's important to take from this is the consultation is happening back in the patient's instance of EMIS Web. So we haven't got it on a separate database, it's all within one instance of EMIS Web. Once the consultation is finished, the clinician will close that instance of EMIS Web and maximise the EMIS instance that's still open in the background where the appointment book is hosted. So the consultation has been completed and the patient has left, so we can now leave the patient. If we go back into the GP practice instance of EMIS now and just have a look at the patient's record and look at her consultation notes. There you can see, as we saw earlier, that it's an enterprise consultation, who the healthcare professional was, and that it's this symbol here, that it is an enterprise consultation. If the patient turns up at the practice a week later and has a consultation, you'll see that when your consultation notes are added to the record, and save that, you can see against these consultation notes that it's a GP surgery consultation, the GP practice name, the healthcare professional, but no enterprise consultation symbol. So you know it's a consultation that happened or was being recorded locally in the GP practice. So this is an enterprise consultation, this is a local consultation. Okay, so I hope you found that useful. Apologies that it was a bit rusty. No doubts there are probably bits missing as well, but yeah, I just hope that's useful for you.